5 major flaws found in the book Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. Very quickly, this video is going to examine 5 major flaws that are found in Guns, Germs, and Steel, a book that is a Pulitzer Prize winner, a book that's really popular, but a book that's also very flawed in its historical accuracy, and we're going to show why right now with 5 major points. Number 1, Guns, Germs, and Steel. China had guns, germs, and steel before Europe. That's right, because China invented the gun, China invented gunpowder, and China invented cannons. The gun was invented somewhere around the mid-10th century AD by the Chinese, not by Europeans. The first gun that shot iron bullets was invented by the Chinese sometime around 1259 AD, and the Chinese started using the first metal barrels around 1275. China also produced its own steel. In fact, China produced so much steel that it would not be until the 1700s that Europeans would actually catch up to China in steel production. China was even sailing as far as Africa under Cheng He, almost 100 years before Columbus would be exploring. And yet, the Chinese chose not to use guns, germs, and steel to invade, colonize, rape, enslave, and occupy the lands of foreigners that they encountered in their naval voyages. Europeans did do all of this and more. Geography and plant ecology cannot explain away this fact that China did not do what Europeans did with guns, germs, and steel. The reasons for this have less to do with geography, with rocks, with plants, with peninsulas, and it has a heck of a lot more to do with the European culture. A European culture of Germanic barbarians. The Germanic barbarians who took over Europe after they brought down the Roman Empire, the Roman civilization in Europe, and brought about the Dark Ages. This Germanic barbarian culture of rape, pillage, and steal. This Germanic barbarian culture that attacked monasteries and killed unarmed monks and stole the wealth inside those monasteries. It's this Germanic barbarian culture of Europe, not the plants of Europe, the Germanic barbarian culture of Europe that said it's perfectly fine to go out and vandalize and kill. Actually, the word vandalize comes from the Germanic tribe of the Vandals. It's these Germanics of Europe that went out and brought down civilization in Europe, and it's this tradition of bringing down civilization that Europeans took to the rest of the world. That's what explains why China, who had guns, germs, and steel before Europe, did not go out into the world and rape and kill and steal and enslave and slaughter and pass apartheid and pass segregation and commit genocide. That's what explains why Europeans were able to go out and do what they did, even though China had the ingredients of guns, germs, and steel before Europe. Remember, China invented the gun. China invented gunpowder. It was this Germanic, barbarian, rape, pillage, and plunder culture that is mostly responsible for Europeans going out into the world, killing, enslaving, and stealing from foreigners. Because if you notice, the Chinese, they had guns, germs, and steel before Europeans, and they did not go out and rape and kill and colonize and slaughter and enslave and pass racist segregation laws. The Chinese did not do that. Now, this is number 1 out of the 5 flaws because this is a major point that Jared Diamond refuses to bring up actually in his book. Not one single time does Jared Diamond give credit to China for inventing the gun. If anybody has read the book, I dare you to find one place in the book where he says something to the effect that China invented the gun, or that firearms were invented in China, or that firearms or guns originated in China. Not one single time does Jared Diamond mention this crucial fact. It's the first word in the title of the book. I thought when I read it that we'd be reading about guns, and at least the history of guns. Jared Diamond makes it look like Europeans invented the gun. This is the major flaw. China had guns, germs, and steel before Europeans. China did not go out into the world colonizing. Europeans did. Plants and rocks do not explain that. Europeans did not go out into the world colonizing with rocks and plants, alright? These are the causes, these are the ultimate causes, according to Diamond. That's the term he uses. Ultimate causes. But Europeans did not go out into the world using these so-called ultimate causes of rocks and plants to conquer the world. Europeans didn't go out by throwing rocks and plants at people, and that's how they took over the world. No. Europeans used, according to Diamond, guns, germs, and steel, which he calls proximate causes. More on this later. But how does Jared Diamond account for the fact that the Chinese had these proximate causes, these proximate factors of guns, germs, and steel before Europeans? Remember, China invented the gun, not Europeans. Well, Jared Diamond doesn't account for this. He just ignores it. He ignores the major fact of history that the Chinese invented guns and gunpowder. I've got to belabor this point because people want to ignore this. Jared Diamond wants to ignore this. What he does instead is he uses a real cute little trick. He uses the term Eurasian. He says Eurasians invented firearms, Eurasian guns, as if the Euro part in that term can claim anything for China's invention. The European part in that Eurasian word has no business claiming the inventions of China, especially guns. So, Diamond's ultimate causes do not explain European conquest because Europeans did not go out into the world throwing rocks and plants and cows at people, alright? According to Diamond, it was these secondary factors, these proximate causes, guns, germs, and steel, hence the title of the book. But if you look at guns, germs, and steel, China had guns, germs, and steel before Europeans. And yet China did not go out and rape the world. Europeans did go out and rape the world after they got guns, germs, and steel, after the Chinese had them. Plants and rocks do not explain that. Culture does. The European culture, which was different from China's culture, Europeans had a barbarian Germanic culture. Europeans had a barbarian invade and pillage culture. China, by contrast, showed no inclinations of colonizing its neighbors, even though China sailed as far as India, the Persian Gulf, Eastern Africa. Yet China does not have colonies there today. China did not capture Africans to enslave them. China did not invade with guns, shooting and killing. China did not go out spreading smallpox all over the place. China didn't go out stealing gold and silver. China didn't do that. Europeans did. Plants and rocks do not explain that. Culture does.